You ever have someone try to pull a fast one on you? Not just the little stuff, but something so brazen you have to blink twice to make sure you heard it right. I mean, the kind of stunt that's got a certain twisted boldness, where for a split second, you almost want to tip your hat, just out of respect for the sheer guts. But let me tell you, that admiration dies off real quick, especially when you realize the person trying to get one over on you is messing with your home, your resources, and, well, your pride. And if you're like me, a retired civil engineer with way too much time on his hands, you start looking forward to the day they figure out just how big a mistake they've made. I'm Frank Henderson. Spent decades working land surveys and wrangling with water rights out here in Texas. So trust me, I know every inch of my own ground better than the lines on my palm. I'd finally bought my little slice of heaven, Serenity Springs, a ranch tucked into the rolling hills, named after the spring that's been gushing clean water since the 1800s. My retirement plan was simple: peace, quiet, no drama. But life, as it always does, decided to test just how much I valued those things. Right next to my spread, there's this shiny new subdivision, Whispering Pines Estates. Fresh paint, cookie-cutter homes, folks obsessed with green lawns and HOA rules. And sitting at the top of that HOA was Brenda McKinnadald, a name that'll make sense in a minute. Brenda, it turned out, thought she could just dig a trench across my pasture, lay down a pipeline, and tap directly into my private spring to supply her kingdom with free water. Let that sink in. She didn't ask, didn't write a letter. Heck, she didn't even bother to let me know. She just sent a crew to carve a 6-inch PVC line straight from my spring, through my pasture, under the fence, and on into her world of perfectly manicured lawns. And when I finally noticed, shut off the illegal tap on my own land, and told her to knock it off, you know what she did. She called the sheriff on me. Yeah, that happened. I remember the first sign that something was off. A faint mechanical hum drifting over the fields, then the water in my main stock pond dipping lower than usual. I'm meticulous, keep records, so it didn't take much for me to spot the drop. Out of habit, I walked the property line, and that's when I saw it. A raw trench, 50 yards inside my fence, bright white pipe glinting in the sun. I followed it back, straight to the spring, and my jaw hit the ground. This wasn't a fence post over the line or a neighbor's dog digging holes. This was a full-on infrastructure job, deliberately trespassing, and using what's mine without so much as a by your leave. Now, before you assume I flew off the handle, I tried the civil route. Drove over to the HOA clubhouse, where Brenda was holding court. She looked me up and down, smiled with that perfect helmet of hair, and said, "Oh, that little project? Just some drainage improvement for the community, dear. Nothing for you to worry your little head about." That's a direct quote. You know what I mean? That's the kind of condescension that sticks in your craw. She talked to me like I was an inconvenience, like I'd interrupted her yoga retreat. I told her, as calm as I could, that this was my land, my spring, and no work had been authorized. She waved me off, insisting it was a community project and I shouldn't get in the way. Then she turned her back. That's when I knew I'd have to fight this battle the old-fashioned way, by the book, with the law on my side. So I started documenting. Drone footage of the pipeline, photos, GPS tags, records of every disturbance. I pulled every deed, plat, and water right going back over 100 years. No easement, no permission, no shared water agreement. I filed everything, then sent a certified cease and desist letter to Brenda and her HOA, laying out the facts. This was trespass, theft of water, and they had 14 days to fix it. Silence. For a week, nothing. Then I get a letter from a discount law firm, full of legal nonsense about community understanding and public benefit doctrine, as if stealing water is some kind of neighborly favor. They even suggested maybe the previous owner of my ranch had agreed to it, a man who'd been dead for 2 decades, and left me the land free and clear. They said the matter was closed and they'd vigorously defend their right to keep the pipeline. At this point, I called in the heavy artillery, my lawyer, Eleanor Sharp. Ellie's a bulldog when it comes to property law, and she nearly cackled when I laid it all out. "Frank, let them keep using it a little longer," she said. "The damages pile up, and when this goes to court, you're not just getting your water back. You'll make them pay for every drop, plus legal fees and a little extra for the trouble." Meanwhile, a twist in the story, my friend Tom from Whispering Pines tipped me off. He'd heard Brenda bragging about her brilliant solution to their water woes, never mentioning whose spring it was. Then I met Martha Henderson, no relation, an original resident, who remembered the developer drilling wells years back and confirmed there was never any deal for the HOA to use my spring. She was more than happy to put it all in a sworn affidavit. With all that in hand, Ellie and I built a legal fortress. But I wasn't done yet. I installed a flow meter on my section of the illegal pipe, tracked their usage, logged everything. Then, with help from my buddy Jerry, a master plumber, I installed a locked valve on my side of the line, a real industrial setup, looking totally above board. I waited for the hottest week of the year, let the HOA drain as much as they liked. Then I shut it off. I made myself a tall glass of iced tea, sat back on my porch, and waited for the show. It took less than 2 hours for the commotion to start. Dead sprinklers, angry residents, Brenda in her hot pink tracksuit waving her arms, and, sure enough, calling the cops. 2 sheriff's SUVs rolled up. Brenda was there first, in full meltdown mode, pointing and shouting about sabotage and eco-terrorism. But when the deputies came to my porch, I was waiting with a binder full of evidence. Every deed, survey, photo, letter, and affidavit. I told them the story, laid out the facts, and handed over Ellie's card. Sergeant Miller and Deputy Rodriguez listened, checked the documents, asked a few questions, and took it all in. You could see the shift in their faces, like they realized Brenda's show wasn't holding up against a stack of cold, hard proof. They went back to Brenda, who, by then, was in full hysterics. And then, here's where it gets cinematic. Rodriguez actually cuffs Brenda, right there in front of everyone. She's screaming, pointing at my ranch, trying to play the victim, but the deputies aren't buying it. They load her into the squad car, and suddenly the Queen Bee is the talk of the town, for all the wrong reasons. Word spread like wildfire. The HOA board was in chaos, residents furious about being misled. The illegal pipeline was dug up and removed at their expense, and Brenda, well, after a night in jail, a public apology, and community service counting tree rings, she resigned and put her house up for sale. Whispering Pines had to cough up the cash for a real water connection, and the new HOA board was a lot more humble. Martha even joined them, making sure nothing this ridiculous would ever happen again. And me? I got my piece back. The spring runs clean, the ranch is quiet, and I don't worry about little community projects anymore. But let's be honest, this whole thing was a wild reminder that property rights only mean as much as you're willing to fight for them. Folks like Brenda come and go, but boundaries, well, those last a lifetime if you know where to draw the line. So, let me ask you, was Brenda the boldest HOA Karen you've ever heard of, or does someone in your neighborhood give her a run for her money? Drop your wildest stories down below, and if you enjoyed this little slice of Texas justice, hit that like and subscribe, because out here, you never know when the next battle line will get drawn.